Next guest. Bridget Llanes is with Sunflowers for Change, a fairly new organization in the neighborhood. I've just gotten to know Bridget over the last 6 months, 9 months. I just felt very strongly that she needed to share her story and what she's doing in this neighborhood, and just add to the story. So welcome. I'm excited to hear.
So weird talking on a microphone. I was listening to other people speak, and I was like, oh no, I hope I'm not going to have to talk on a microphone. But here I am. That was very beautiful what Claudia just shared, and it really reached me because I have lived on the street and have also done sex work and know what that's like. I live in the International District now. Originally, I'm from Hobbs, New Mexico. I left my home when I was 15. Definitely by the time I was 16, I was pretty suicidal. I had tried to commit suicide a couple of times. I grew up in a lot of domestic violence. My family, I also would like to say, they were really hard workers. They worked in the oil fields in Hobbs. And I think that there's a big link in the way that we treat our earth with the way that we treat our women. And that's something that I feel like really inside my body and myself every time I walk the street. So I remember this night that I had when I really wanted it to be over. It was Christmas, and I was 16 years old. I had made myself this sandwich filled with acetaminophen and different kinds of speed and stuff like that, and I wanted to taste how bitter it was and how disgusting it was, so I made this sandwich for myself with the hopes that I would just be knocked out and just not be here anymore. And of course, things just don't happen like that. I was in a park. I'd been homeless for about 6 months at that point, and was in a park and was leaning my back up against a tree, and I really felt the support of that tree, like a lot. It was like with me, you know. So I was eating this sandwich and really thinking about my life and how I couldn't really be here. And the presence of the tree kind of guided me through that night. It got to be too cold because it was around Christmas, it was winter, for me to really stay outside. And I had kind of passed out and nodded out. And I felt the tree kind of elevate my body so that I could see myself from like high above. And I looked down at myself and saw myself amidst all these trees. And I realized I was with friends, and that even though I felt alone, that I was not alone. And I get all emotional. I don't usually tell this story, so I really appreciate being able to tell it. It's kind of what brought me to the work that I'm doing here. So obviously I'm not dead. I vomited for the next 3 days. And people weren't really there for me at that time period. Most people thought I made up the story of me trying to kill myself. Like, I don't think anybody really believed me. It was just the circumstances of where I was at. And what was apparent was that something wanted me to live. Really strong, like the spirit wanted me to live, and I felt it through the trees, and I felt it through the plants, and I hitchhiked for a few years and continued to feel it. And I remember at one point I asked the earth, I was like, sometimes I'm suffering under the fact that I've been sexually abused and that I myself have exploited my own body. And I don't know that, who do I share that with? I don't even know who I talk to about that. And the earth said, well, that happens with me every day. Actually, people exploit my resources every day. If there's anyone that knows what rape is, it's me. And I felt that. I was like, this is how we treat our earth at this time period. And at that point, I realized this was happening when I was hitchhiking, that I wanted to really dedicate my life to the earth and like getting to know it better, because I didn't really know it. I didn't know what direction the sun rose. I didn't know what direction the sun set. Although I came from agricultural people, we did monoculture cropping of like cotton and things like that, and that's a very detached form of farming. And it's also very violent in some ways. So I started to learn about plants. I started to learn all kinds of things about plants, and I think my abuela, who also used plants, for really kind of bringing that into my space, like just reminding me about using plants for healing, learning about remedios. Like, I just started learning about plants a lot. And I found myself about 4 years ago sitting across from my friend, and we were in a geology class. So I didn't start going to university until I was in my 30s, so I was much older. And we were working together and we were making this map, and I noticed there was this map was actually showing where I live and where my friend lived. And I was like, what is this map of? I asked the teacher, like, we're making this contour map of what? And he said, it's of a jet fuel spill. And I was like, a jet fuel spill? My friend was like, I live on top of a jet fuel spill. And we didn't realize that there was a jet fuel spill in our neighborhood in the International District, just a few blocks from here. And the more we learned about it, it was like the largest jet fuel spill in the United States. It is. It's 24 million gallons. And it wouldn't let me alone, really. I kept feeling it and waking up and thinking about, oh my gosh, there is this jet fuel that's floating on top of an aquifer, like our beautiful, precious aquifer here, our water. And I don't know what to do about it, but I feel like I need to be, something, I don't know, I felt really compelled, and my friend felt really compelled, and we started to go to meetings and realizing that a lot of the community's needs who were living on top of the jet fuel spill weren't being addressed. Like, for instance, there's not been any kind of testing to see whether people are being negatively affected by the vapors that are coming off of the jet fuel spill. So the health effects, the things like that, like, there just has not been very much conversation. And because of my love of plants, I thought, well, I really, I don't know how it happened. I was I think at an IDHCC meeting. So there's the International District Healthy Communities Coalition. If you haven't heard of them, or if you haven't been to their meetings, they're really amazing places where people share. They share like kind of testimonials and just kind of what life is like here in the neighborhood. And at that point, I mentioned it to people. I was like, well, what about plants? They were talking to me like, don't plants do some healing? And I was like, oh yeah. So I started to do some research and was learning about how powerful sunflowers are. So I'm just going to ask a question. So does anyone have an experience or a memory with a sunflower? There's a few people. Oh my goodness. Does anyone have one that they would like to share? And there was a lot of hands just now.
I mean, when I think of my wife really likes sunflowers, and going by sunflower fields is just something that, it's a memory, it's a distinct feeling, that kind of happiness. So that's kind of what comes to mind when you ask that question.
Right. I think probably a lot of people have that experience, that when you see the yellow of the sunflower, it's like, it's bright, right? One of the coolest things about sunflowers is that when you plant them, there has been all this research that has shown that they actually can phytodegrade like both organic and inorganic elements like lead and possibly even volatile organic compounds and radionuclides and things like that. Like, sunflowers are so amazing and powerful. So I wanted to see, and I still want to see, because it's happening, what can sunflowers do for our neighborhood? I think something also that's really beautiful about sunflowers is that although they're very bright, their centers are very dark. And both the shadow and the light are incredibly important. Like, we transform because of darkness. Like, darkness is not, for me, it's not a bad, it's not like some bad negative thing that I don't, it's my life. And moving darkness into light spaces and lightness into dark spaces is a part of life. And I'm, just curious, like what happens when we work with the neighborhood to plant things on the jet fuel spill? Can we have conversations making these garden parties with each other about how is it affecting us? Like, is it affecting us? Do we notice certain smells? Are we experiencing anything? And then actually doing the testing of finding out, are these plants actually picking up anything? Are people actually being harmed? And at the same time, imagining the neighborhood just filled with sunflowers, this neighborhood that a lot of people say lots of negative stuff about. It's really a beautiful neighborhood that is my home, and it feels really good to be here. Just filled with sunflowers. Sunflowers that are just doing their thing like many plants do, which is transferring what's in the soil, like up into their body, reaching up towards the light, And so that's part of what we do with Sunflowers for Change. We have like rain gardens that so a rain garden is something that is a garden that requires very little water. And we plant a lot of native plants on the rain garden in people's yards. And we do it for free. And then they do it with us, and so they learn how to do it. And then we get a lot of neighbors together at the same time, and we have these rain gardens. And then hopefully at some point we'll be able to test the plants and see if they're picking up anything. So that's part of what Sunflowers for Change does. And we also have like a homeless advocacy group and some other things like that. But it's been a part of my healing process, realizing how much plants have been integral to my life, and not just my life, we wouldn't be here without them. They connect me to my ancestors, they connect me to the earth, and anytime I feel like I don't belong, I touch a tree and I know that I do. That's where I connect. I really appreciated Claudia sharing about how important it is to go outside and walk and to really see who's in the street and see what's in the street. And part of that walk for me is also seeing the other things like the plants and stuff like that that are also in the street too, and appreciating them for the work that they're doing every day. So thank you very much.